Have you ever stopped to think about the chaos we are living in? Natural disasters, uncertainties, and the world in constant transformation. It seems that, with each passing day, things become harder to understand and more challenging to face. Perhaps you wonder what all this means, why so many problems, and if there's any answer. I know that amidst all this, it can feel like there's no hope. But what if I told you that there is not only an explanation, but also a solution? In this video, we will see something profound and transformative. The prophecies that have already foretold these times in which we are living, and more than that, I will show you how, even in the midst of chaos, there is a promise of hope and renewal. Stay until the end, because the last prophecy brings a special challenge, something that few people can accomplish, but that can completely transform the way you see everything around you. If you have ever felt lost or weary in the face of the disasters we have witnessed, this video is for you. Here, you will find not only answers but a clear direction to navigate this difficult period with faith and purpose. Do not let chaos consume you. Follow along with me and discover how the promise of restoration can be yours as well. Prophecy 1, Hurricane Milton and the signs of the end times. Nature is crying out. Amidst the chaos we see around, Hurricane Milton is not just another news story about destruction. It brings a warning, a message that has echoed for thousands of years in the pages of the Bible. The prophecies that were once merely read now seem to come to life before our eyes. Jesus, in his words, warned that events like these would come. He did not only speak of wars and conflicts, but also mentioned the natural disasters that we would see increase in frequency and intensity. Milton, with its devastating winds and floods, is not just a storm. It reflects something greater. Humanity is witnessing a cycle of natural chaos that goes far beyond physical destruction. There is a greater disturbance happening. The Bible describes that the increase of earthquakes, storms, and other phenomena are clear signs that the earth is groaning, awaiting something deeper and more significant. These are not simple catastrophes. They are reflections of a world that is about to change, transforming with every sign that arises. Jesus, when talking about the signs of the end times, quoted, "Nation will rise against nation, and there will be famines, pestilences, and earthquakes in various places." This connects us directly to the reality we live in today. It's as if we are witnessing these events live. Milton is part of a larger picture. It makes us think that Christ's predictions were not just stories of the past, but warnings that apply to the present. Humanity often ignores these signs, treating them as isolated phenomena. But if we stop to look closely, we will see that there is a pattern. Every hurricane, every earthquake, every volcanic eruption, everything seems to be aligning with a greater purpose. Hurricane Milton does not escape this rule. It is part of a scenario that shows that things are moving towards something we still cannot fully understand, but we know it is coming. And this is just one part of what has been revealed. The Bible speaks of the waves roaring, that nature will respond with fury. This does not mean that God has abandoned humanity, but rather that he is showing us that time is running out. And with each new disaster, the call is the same. Be prepared, not in the sense of stockpiling supplies or protecting oneself in shelters, but preparing the heart and soul. Each of these events is a call for us to turn our gaze to what truly matters. These signs, like Hurricane Milton, are like voices echoing in the storms, crying out for attention. Often, the destruction we see around us is just a reflection of the spiritual destruction we are living through. When we see cities flooded, lives lost, we feel the weight of our fragility. This brings us to realize that no matter how much we try to control the world around us, we are vulnerable to forces much greater. And these forces, although they seem chaotic, have a purpose. Nature is in tune with something greater. It responds, reacts, and makes us remember that, despite all our technology and advances, we are still subject to divine power, and Milton is a living reminder of this. It's not just about a devastating storm, but a call to look upward, to something greater that is unfolding. The first part of this prophecy leads us to understand that natural disasters are not random. They are part of a cycle that is just beginning to show its strength. Hurricane Milton is just a piece of this puzzle that completes with each new event we witness. The Bible is clear when speaking about these signs, and we are living this in real time. Do not ignore, do not treat it as a passing event. Time is running out, and with every new storm, we are reminded that the end, as described in the scriptures, is drawing closer. We are living in extremely challenging times. Natural disasters like Hurricane Milton are more than isolated tragedies. They are signs that are right before our eyes. The prophecies are being fulfilled so clearly, yet many still do not realize what we are seeing around us cannot be ignored. And that is why I decided to provide material that will help you better understand what is happening and what is to come. In the first pinned comment, you will find the link to my digital book, which is available for a limited time. This book will guide you through the biblical prophecies and show you how each one connects with current events, transforming the way you see what is to come. Click the link in the first comment now, because supplies are limited and will soon be taken down. You won't want to miss this opportunity to understand what is happening around you and how to prepare for what is still to come. The prophecy about Hurricane Milton is just the beginning. In the next part, we will see how natural disasters, like earthquakes and climate problems, were foretold thousands of years ago, and how this directly affects our future. Prophecy 2, Natural Disasters and the Judgment that is to come. The scriptures have always been clear about the signs we would see as the end times approached. Natural disasters, so common today, had already been predicted thousands of years ago. What seems just chaos and destruction to many actually reveals a pattern. The Bible, in books like Matthew and Revelation, shows us that earthquakes, troubles, and famines would increase in frequency, and that is exactly what we have witnessed in our world. Each time the earth trembles or the waters stir, we are seeing more than mere natural phenomena. These events carry within them a profound message. They are reflections of the judgment that is coming. It is not about a mere coincidence of events. Everything seems to be increasing in intensity, as if creation itself is crying out, warning us that something greater is happening. Jesus spoke to his disciples about this. He clearly mentioned that before his return, the earth would go through times of great distress. Mass disasters, destruction, and troubles would become increasingly common, and today we see this in a startling way. If we look at recent history, we note that we have never before had such an impressive sequence of natural disasters. The increase in hurricanes like Milton, the number of devastating earthquakes around the world, droughts, floods, everything is connected. The apocalypse presents us with an even deeper vision of this scenario. In the first trumpets, we see the beginning of a period of great destruction. It's as if nature is being used to show that time is running out. Fire consuming the land, waters transforming, and life being affected irreparably. These disasters are, in a way, a portent of something greater. Every event we witness now is a reminder that divine judgment is approaching. The second trumpet speaks of an impact that turns the waters into blood. Now, we may not see this happening literally, but what we are witnessing is certainly related. Water, the source of life, being contaminated, destroyed, affected in ways we never imagined. And that is when we realize everything is part of something much larger, something that is beyond our control. With every earthquake, every hurricane, it's as if a trumpet is being sounded. The world responds in fear, but often ignores the deeper meaning. For those who pay attention, these events are not just coincidences. The earth is in convulsion, not just physically, but spiritually. The apocalypse reminds us that these signs were predicted, and yet many choose to close their eyes. But for those who see, for those who understand what the scriptures say, these events are warnings. Earthquakes are a clear example. They come with force, without warning, destroying entire cities in a matter of minutes. And if you look at their frequency in recent times, you will notice a startling pattern. The earth is more active than ever, as if it is being forced to react to something much greater than itself. And according to the prophecies, this is just the beginning. Another clear sign given to us is famine, food scarcity, drought, increasing poverty. All of this aligns with what the Bible has already said. Jesus warned us that these things would happen, and they are happening before our eyes. They are not just social problems. They reflect something much deeper, something unfolding in the spiritual realm that is becoming increasingly evident in the physical world. These natural events, even though tragic, are reminders. They show us that the world is following a path that has long been drawn. And as these catastrophes increase, it's as if the very earth is calling our attention. We are closer than we imagine to the great conclusion that the scriptures predicted. We cannot ignore it. Every tremor, every destruction is an opportunity to look beyond what is visible and realize that something much greater is about to happen. These disasters, in their increasing frequency and intensity, are announcing that the end is near, but it's not just about fearing what is to come. It's about understanding that these events are an opportunity, a chance to turn to what really matters, to prepare not just physically, but spiritually for what comes next. Prophecy 3. The 7 trumpets and the devastating impact that will come. The 7 trumpets mentioned in Revelation are not just distant or mysterious symbols. They carry a deep and frightening meaning, directly reflecting what we are seeing around the world. When the first angel sounds his trumpet, the impact is immediate. Hail and fire mixed with blood fall upon the earth. 1/3 of the earth is burned. 1/3 of the trees and all the green grass are destroyed. The physical world begins to be consumed, and what we see are disasters that destroy the very foundation of our existence. This first trumpet is a reminder that nature, so vital for our survival, will be used to show the fury that is to come. The forests, which sustain life, and the fields that feed millions are not protected from this destruction. It's as if the earth itself is being purified, but at an immense cost, and we can already see the first signs of this. Uncontrollable wildfires are increasing, devastating large areas of the planet, and the impact on the environment is irreversible. This is the first trumpet echoing around us, warning that something greater is about to happen. The second angel sounds his trumpet, and something like a great mountain on fire is thrown into the sea. 1/3 of the sea turns to blood, and 1/3 of the living creatures in the sea die. Imagine the chaos this would bring. Not just physical destruction, but the immeasurable loss of marine life, the collapse of ecosystems. There is no escaping the consequences of this. The waters, which represent life, now become deadly. What once sustained humanity is now turning against it, and what we are seeing today is the beginning of this process. The pollution of the seas, the disappearance of entire species, and climate change are causing the ocean to react in ways we cannot control. The sea, which should be a source of life, is becoming a destructive force, bringing increasingly intense storms and threatening the existence of millions of people who depend on it to survive. The echo of this second trumpet is becoming clearer, and the feeling of helplessness in the face of the magnitude of this event is inevitable. Then the third angel sounds his trumpet, and a great star burning like a torch falls from heaven upon the rivers and the springs of water. 1/3 of the waters turns bitter, and many die from the bitter water. This event is like a final blow to natural resources. It is not enough for the land and the sea to be in ruins. Now even the sources of fresh water, so essential to life, are compromised. Water, the most basic element for human survival, becomes uninhabitable, poisonous. And we can already see this reflected in our reality. The contamination of rivers, the poisoning of water sources, and the shortage of drinking water are a growing threat. Entire regions of the world are suffering from a lack of access to clean water, and the destruction of this basic resource only increases the feeling that we are losing control over what is most essential for life. The third trumpet sounds as a clear warning that the end is not just a distant possibility, but a reality that is approaching. These three trumpets described in Revelation are like a prelude to what is to come. They show that the world, as we know it, is in a process of deterioration, and with every natural event we witness, be it a hurricane, a wildfire, or the contamination of a river, it is as if we silently hear the sound of these trumpets. It is not something we can ignore or treat as normal. Everything around us is warning us about the magnitude of the events that are to happen. Revelation is not just a book of symbols or metaphors. The trumpets mentioned in it show us clearly that the natural world will be the first to reflect God's judgment. And we are seeing this now. Nature, which so nourishes and sustains humanity, is turning against us in ways we cannot control. And while many may try to deny or ignore it, the signs are becoming increasingly evident. There is no way to predict when the fourth trumpet will sound or what the exact consequences will be. But what we can do is understand that these first three trumpets are already in motion, and what we witness today is just the beginning of something much greater. Natural disasters, climate change, and the destruction of nature are just a part of this great revelation unfolding before our eyes. It is now clear that we are living in times where the book of Revelation becomes more relevant than ever. The trumpets, with their warnings, are sounding louder and louder. What remains to be seen is, are we prepared for what comes next? Now that we have talked about the first three prophecies, tell me, had you heard of them before? Did you know that natural disasters such as fires and hurricanes were connected to the trumpets of Revelation? Leave in the comments if any of these prophecies surprised you or if you were already aware of these details. I would love to know how you perceive all of this. And before we move on to the next prophecy, I need to remind you, the last prophecy has a special challenge, something that few people can accomplish. So, stay until the end, because this challenge may change the way you see everything around you. Now, let's move forward and understand what the four horsemen of the apocalypse have to do with what we are experiencing today. Prophecy 4. The four horsemen of the apocalypse and divine judgment. The four horsemen of the apocalypse are figures that carry a clear message. The world is entering a phase of destruction that cannot be ignored. Each of these horsemen brings a type of chaos and suffering that we have already begun to see around us. They represent war, famine, pestilence, and death, and are directly linked to the events we see unfolding in our everyday lives. Biblical prophecies warn us that as we approach the end, these horsemen will gallop across the earth, bringing despair and devastation. The first horseman comes with war. He carries a bow and is crowned to conquer. Today, we see wars taking place all over the world. They are not merely isolated conflicts. They are part of a sequence that is intensifying. Nations rise against other nations, with each conflict leaving a trail of destruction and suffering. The war horseman is already among us, and the conflicts that arise ceaselessly are a clear reflection of his presence. He is advancing, and what we see now is just a small part of what is yet to come. The second horseman carries a sword, and his power is to take peace from the earth. He brings strife and hatred with him. We see this happening at all levels of society. The world is divided, and fights between nations, groups, and even between individuals are increasing. Peace is being systematically removed, and chaos is taking its place. The impact of this is clear. Just look around. The world is fragmenting, and political, social, and even personal tensions are growing every day. This horseman is turning peace into a distant dream. The third horseman, mounted on a black horse, brings famine with him. He holds a scale, symbolizing the scarcity of food. Famine does not only affect the poorest parts of the world. Today, even the richest nations face challenges in their supply chains, and the cost of food is skyrocketing. The impact of this horseman is global. Entire regions are on the brink of food collapse, and millions of people are suffering from lack of food. Hunger spreads silently, affecting more and more lives. And it's not just about scarcity, but about an unfair division, where a few have much and many have nothing. The fourth horseman is the most feared of all. He rides a pale horse, and his name is Death. Beside him, Hades accompanies him, taking away a quarter of humanity. This horseman symbolizes the final devastation, and we can already see its signs. Death does not come only through conflicts or hunger, but also from diseases and plagues that spread with frightening speed. Global epidemics, as we have seen recently, are just the beginning. The horseman of death is reaping lives en masse, and the world is increasingly vulnerable to diseases that cannot be controlled. The destruction he brings is inevitable. These horsemen are not distant. They are not just figures from a remote past or a story yet to come. They are already here, acting in our world, showing that divine judgment is not something distant, but a reality that is approaching. They ride together, bringing a sequence of events that directly affects the lives of all of us. The apocalypse warns us about the arrival of these horsemen, and now we can see how these events are already unfolding. War, famine, plagues, and death are no longer just abstract concepts. They are in our daily lives, appearing in news headlines, on the streets, and in communities around the world. The chaos they bring is not something we can control, as it is directly linked to divine judgment, and that judgment is underway. These horsemen serve as a reminder that humanity is being called to account. There is no escaping the consequences of our actions. The book of Revelation warns us that these events are not random. They are part of a much larger plan, and the presence of these horsemen is a sign that the earth is being judged. War, famine, plagues, and death are manifestations of the chaos that accompanies the end times. The destruction is inevitable, but it is not the definitive end. What we are seeing now is the prelude to something even greater that is to come. The question that remains is, how do we deal with this? Ignoring the signs will not change what is happening. The presence of these horsemen is a clear warning. The world is in a cycle of destruction, and each of their steps brings us closer to what has been predicted. The earth is being prepared for a great conclusion, and it is up to each of us to recognize what is happening and understand that we are in a decisive moment. Prophecy 5. God in control of nature. Amidst all that is happening, there is an unshakable truth. God is in control. No matter the chaos we see around us, the destruction caused by natural disasters, or the crises that arise each day, nothing escapes God's gaze. What may seem like an out-of-control world to us is nothing more than part of a larger plan that He completely governs. This divine sovereignty over nature is something that the book of Job has already shown us. When Job, in his suffering, questions the reason for his misfortune, God reminds him that He controls the wind, the storm, and the sea. Nothing happens without His permission. This control of God over nature may seem harsh for those suffering the consequences of a disaster. But there is something much greater happening. Revelation tells us that natural disasters are often part of divine judgment. a warning to humanity that time is running out. Every earthquake, hurricane, or fire we see is a reminder that God is active in our history. He is not a passive spectator. The Bible repeatedly shows us that God uses nature to fulfill his purposes, whether for correction or warning. When the wind roars, when the waters rise, and the cities fall, it can be difficult to see God's hand in all of this. But the truth is that he never loses control. And even when we are surrounded by destruction, there is a greater purpose that we cannot fully see. The natural events that haunt us today are just the beginning of something deeper. They are not random or senseless. They are part of a divine plan that has been revealed throughout Scripture. Jesus also spoke about this. When he calmed the storm on the Sea of Galilee, he showed his absolute power over the elements. He gave a clear demonstration that the control of creation belongs to God. No matter how intense the destruction we see now, God has the power to turn chaos into calm. He controls the fury of nature and uses it to show us something that goes beyond the physical. Nature obeys his voice, and the disasters we face are a way to alert us to what is to come. Therefore, it is important to think about what these events represent. The hurricane that destroys, the earthquake that devastates, all of this leads us to a greater question. What is God trying to show us? Humanity often lives as if it is in charge, but when nature rises against us, we are forced to remember our fragility. God uses these moments to show us our dependence on him and the need to turn our hearts toward what truly matters. God is in control even of the darkest moments. This doesn't mean that he directly causes each disaster, but that nothing happens without passing through his will. Even nature, with all its strength and unpredictability, is subject to divine power. And throughout the Bible, we see that he often allows these events to happen to draw his people's attention, to bring them back to him. These disasters are also opportunities, moments when humanity is challenged to look up, to seek meaning in the midst of chaos. With each hurricane, with each earthquake, there is a message that this world is not our final home. There is something greater to come. The Bible teaches us that creation is groaning, waiting for redemption. This reminds us that, although we face these moments of destruction now, there is a promise of renewal that we have not yet seen fully, and most importantly, these events show that God is not distant. He is present in the midst of chaos, guiding history, shaping events for his purposes. For those who believe, these moments of crisis are not a cause for despair, but a renewal of faith. We know that no matter how devastating the disasters are, God is in control of everything. Nothing escapes his hands. So, when we look at the natural disasters happening around us, we do not see only destruction, we see God's hand at work. He is reminding us that this world is temporary, that there is something greater waiting for us, and above all, that he is sovereign and nothing can happen outside of his plan. This is the certainty we must have in the midst of chaos. God is in control, and he will use even the most difficult moments to fulfill his purposes. We have now talked about how God is in control of everything, even the most difficult moments, such as the natural disasters that seem to be out of control. Knowing that he even uses these events to accomplish his plans gives us a sense of tranquility amid chaos. But before we move on to the next part, I want to remind you of something very important. Don't forget to get your digital book. It will help you to understand even more deeply how these prophecies connect with the events we are living. The link is in the first pinned comment, and the units are limited, so make sure to get yours before it runs out. Now, let's see how the church, in the midst of all this chaos, plays a fundamental role. The church was called to be light in times of darkness, and that is what we will talk about next. Prophecy 6. The church as light in the darkness. In times of crisis, when the world seems to be collapsing around us, the church has a clear mission: to be the light that illuminates the way in the midst of darkness. In moments when natural disasters destroy homes and lives, the church is called to act, to be the hand that extends help, the voice that consoles, and the refuge for those who suffer. It is not just about beautiful words or empty promises. It is about true action, practical compassion, and sincere support. In the most difficult moments, the role of the church is crucial for those facing the destruction of their lives. Jesus has already given us this calling. He told us, "You are the light of the world." This is not a small or insignificant mission. When a hurricane hits a city or an earthquake destroys a community, the church needs to be present, not just with prayers, but with helping hands, with real and concrete support. The church is the one that must rise up when everything around is falling. And it is in that hour that true faith is shown, not just with words, but with actions. When we see homeless people, helpless families, and lives being destroyed by disasters, the church must be the place of welcome, not just with a physical roof, but with the spiritual shelter that offers hope and renewal. It is the time to remember that, despite all the pain, there is something greater that can bring healing, and that something greater is the love of Christ shown through every act of compassion. In times of crisis, the church cannot remain silent. It cannot remain still. Those who suffer need to see that the body of Christ is there, ready to help. The world needs this light that shines in the midst of darkness, showing that there is still hope, even when everything seems lost. The scriptures tell us that in the last days, the church would be tested, and this test does not come just in words, but in how we respond to the suffering around us. The call is clear. The church must act, and this action should not be motivated by recognition, but by love. This love is what moves every gesture of support, from offering food and shelter to simply being present, listening and comforting those who have lost everything. And more than that, the church is called to be an example, a beacon of how we should behave in times of tribulation. When chaos reigns, the church must stand out for the peace it brings, for the compassion it offers, and for the hope it carries. The church was not called to live only within its four walls. It was created to be an active force in the world, especially in times of crisis. And when natural disasters strike, it is the perfect opportunity for Christians to show the world what it means to be a disciple of Christ. It is not about empty speeches, it is about serving. It is about making a difference in the lives of those who have been devastated by calamities. And this does not happen only with great gestures. Many times, it is the small acts that have the most impact. A warm meal for someone who has lost everything, a word of comfort for someone in mourning, a temporary roof for someone who has become homeless. It is in these moments that the true light of the church shines the brightest. And it is this light that the world needs to see. When Hurricane Milton passed, destroying everything in its path, many lost everything. But the church, by placing itself as a light, can help these people rise again. Our role is clear. The world is falling around us, but we have been called to be light. And this light is not just a spiritual idea, but a practical attitude, a daily action. With each disaster, with each crisis, the church needs to rise up, stronger and more committed than ever. This is our mission, and we cannot fail in this. The world is watching, and how we respond to these critical moments can transform lives. The church has a unique opportunity to show the world the love of Christ, a love that does not abandon, that does not turn its back in times of crisis, a love that acts, that is present. When everything around seems enveloped in darkness, it is the role of the church to be the beacon, illuminating the way back to hope, to faith, and to the purpose that God has for each one of us. This is the true calling of the church, to be light in the midst of darkness, to be the hand that helps and the heart that loves. The crisis is here. Chaos is all around us, but the church is here too. And if there is something the world needs to see, it is that this light will not go out. It will shine brighter with every moment of difficulty. This is our calling. This is our role. And as calamities occur, the church will be the reflection of the love of Christ to the world. Prophecy 7. Hope and restoration in Christ. In the midst of all destruction and chaos, when the world seems to be crumbling and natural disasters increase in intensity, there is a promise that never fails. Hope in Christ. Hurricane Milton may have caused devastation, but it is not the end of the story. Revelation speaks of a time of pain and tribulation, but also of a time of renewal. The destruction we see now is only temporary, and there is a much greater promise waiting for those who trust in God, a promise of new heavens and a new earth, where there will be no more pain, death, or suffering. This promise of restoration is not something distant or inaccessible. It is real, and it is within reach of all. Christ offers us a hope that goes beyond this world. He already told us that the world would go through tribulations, but assured us that, in the end, He would make everything new. This is the message we must carry with us in times like these. When everything seems lost, Christ reminds us that there is something much greater reserved for those who trust in Him. The pain we see around us, the disasters, the deaths, are part of a fallen world, a world that is groaning, waiting for its redemption, and that redemption will come. The Bible promises us a future where there will be no more tears, where death will be defeated forever. When Christ returns, He will bring with Him a new creation, where destruction will have no more place, where life will be full and perfect. This is the final destiny that is reserved for us, not the chaos we see now, but the total restoration of all things. In the most difficult moments, it is easy to forget this promise. It is easy to look at suffering and think that there is no way out. But Christ calls us to remember what He has already promised us, and this promise is unchanging. He offers us a hope that goes beyond the here and now, a hope that cannot be shaken, no matter what happens around us. This hope is the anchor that keeps us firm, even when the world seems to be collapsing. And this hope invites us to act differently, to live with our eyes set on the future that God has promised us. We cannot be carried away by fear or despair. Yes, disasters will come. Yes, suffering is part of our current reality. But that is not all. God is preparing something much greater. And as Christians, we are called to live this hope now, to share this promise with those who are still lost in darkness. Restoration in Christ is complete. He does not just offer us a physical renewal, but a total transformation. When He returns, not only will the world be renewed, but we will be as well. We will be transformed, renewed, free from all pain and suffering. This is the glorious future that awaits us. And while we await that day, Christ invites us to live with this expectation, to let this hope guide our actions and decisions. Now, I want to make a challenge for you. In light of everything we are living through, all the calamities and tribulations, how have you lived your hope? Have you allowed yourself to be carried away by fear and uncertainty? Or have you kept your eyes fixed on Christ and the promise of restoration that He has given us? Share in the comments how you have faced these difficult times and how the promise of Christ has influenced your life. Let's use this space to reflect on our hope and encourage one another. After all, Christ has already given us the victory. No matter how dark the night may be, the sun of renewal is about to rise, and this renewal will not be temporary. It will be eternal. What remains for us is to remain steadfast, trusting in what He has already promised us. What we are facing now is just a part of the greater plan that God is executing. And in the end, we will be part of a new world where death, pain, and suffering will have no place. This is the final promise. This is the hope that we carry. Even in the midst of the storm, there is something greater, something that awaits us, and that something is eternal life in a new heaven and a new earth where Christ will reign forever. How are you preparing for that? Write your answer in the comments and share your experience. Now that we have seen all the prophecies and understand the hope and restoration that Christ offers us, I want to challenge you to reflect on everything that has been said. How are you preparing for this promise of renewal? Put your answer in the comments and share your experience. And of course, don't leave yet. On the screen, you will see 2 videos that will help you understand even more about the biblical prophecies and how they connect to current times. Watch now to continue learning. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, click the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss the upcoming videos. And if this content was important to you, leave your like and share it with someone who also needs to understand more about these truths. Let's spread this message together and help more people find hope in such difficult times.